Good morning, cuties and comrades. Today is another beautiful day in history, and we've got critical work to do. I'm Sarah Mishnick, and I'll be your critical thinking coach, here to walk you through the 5 dimensions of what it means to be a critical thinker. Yesterday, we talked about intentionality, which means today we're going to be talking about essentials, learning to spot and maintain those things that matter most. How do we know we're on the right track? You've got good instincts, that's for sure. But we can tighten up those instincts and make sure, just have a rubric for what is essential. That's what we're trying to do, is name more of those essential things. So we are relying on our gut. That's super important. But when we can connect our gut with reason and justification, that's the dream. That's the dream. So we want to combine as many types of intelligence as we possibly can. And that's what essential philosophy is all about. So that's what we're going to be doing today as I dive in to my knowledge of the people, by the people, for the people, where I have a ton of essential cards. Look at all those essential cards. What? It's a lot. There are a lot of things that we need to know about spotting and maintaining the things that matter most. So let's go ahead and toss them in. Dun, 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 dun. Oop. Got some old ones in there. Toss those out. Put these in. Shake it. And we'll reach into the middle of the pile. All right. Oh, nice. Okay. Here's Paulo Freire from We Make the Road. We make the road by walking, not we walk the road by making. We make the road by walking, which is like on my desk. I can almost reach it. Such a great book. I recommend it. It's such an easy read for all kinds of people, and especially teachers. But what to get out of this quote, if you've already read it, I haven't read it out loud yet, but if it isn't too blurry to read, you might note that this quote is about how education mimics life. So even though in the Colors of Critical morning session, I am not talking about education as an institutionalized institution, it's not about a system of schooling. When I talk about education in this class, I am talking about the process you, my friend, engage in no matter who you are. You're an intelligent creature, which means you are constantly involved and engaged in a process of education. Okay, so that's what this quote is about. So don't turn it off just because you're not a teacher and you're like, what does this have to do with me? It's got a lot to do with you. So let's go ahead and read it. Education is before, is during, and is after. It's a process, a permanent process. It has to do with the human existence and curiosity. Paulo Freire. He's such a sweet man. Seriously, read that book. His sweetness just like comes off the pages. Just warms my heart. Okay, so as I was saying, this is kind of saying exactly what I was just saying. It beat me to the punch, this quote. Education is it's before you do anything, during, and it's after. So let's actually break that down, because I think that's an interesting way to frame education as a historical and social project. So let's talk about how it's a historic project. Humans have always engaged in learning with and from one another. Always. So yes, you've had education before you can even remember. It's kind of the whole thing. I talk about it all the time, but I live with a baby, and what is he doing right now? Learning with every breath. So yeah, your education was before any formal education, before you step foot in a school. You already likely had the capacity to engage your language, your mathematical ability as a human. This is one of the stances that critical educators take, is that we are born scientists. We are born mathematicians. We are born linguistic geniuses, all of us. And we're born with a historical capacity. So all the subjects in school aren't meant to be cooped up in a building with a curriculum and a syllabus. No. You did math as a toddler when you were able to have a sense of spatial awareness and measurement, comparing which is bigger. Hello, That's mathematics. Mathematics in school gives us extra accuracy, right? But like you don't have to go to school. Toddlers can tell which one's heavier and which one's lighter, right? That's math. That's an understanding of numbers and weight, right? So, yeah, you've always been mathematical. You've always been scientific. You've had a grasp of physics. Please, if I show my little baby roommate some magic trick where the ball doesn't drop from my hand and it somehow appears in this hand, but it never left this one, that the physical, they have a sense already of the physical limitations of this world. They understand physics. No. Can he do the equations? No. That is something we have to learn at school, but already we have the capacity for it. So, yeah, you already have the capacity to do all the great stuff you're going to do. It's just about learning how to do it, but you're capable of anything. We're incredible species. You should be proud. Humans, unite. Am I right? We're pretty dope. We can do a lot of cool stuff. And so instead of being like, oh, I'm not a scientist, that's Carl Sagan has a great quote. And in fact, I'm sure it's in my large inventory somewhere in one of these categories. But Carl Sagan has a quote about this, about how when you visit a kindergarten class, there are so many profound and deep questions. And by the time he gets to 12th grade, nobody's a scientist anymore. Something's getting lost. We're forgetting that, drop my card. We're forgetting that education is before, is during, it's after. So, yeah, it's already, you've already been engaging in that. You don't need school. You can do school, but you're already capable of so many things just by being a human, y'all. It's pretty awesome. All right, education is during. Obviously, as we're interacting from one another, we're engaging in a process of learning from one another in every social situation we're in. You're learning all the time. Sorry, boo. I know it's exhausting, but it's life. It's a process. It's permanent. So says Paulo Freire. And I happen to agree. Okay, and it's after. All right, you're not going to learn gosh darn nothing if you don't reflect afterwards. Paulo Freire is a big proponent of praxis, which is action plus reflection. And reflection has to come before action. We reflect before we act, and then we reflect again after we act. Or we're not going to have truly learned. So this is what he's talking about. When he talks about education is always, he's talking about praxis. We reflect, we act, we reflect again. We act again, we reflect, we react, we reflect, we act. This is what he's talking about. And always, all of your actions, if you learn a lesson from those actions, if it didn't turn out the way you wanted, let me think of an example. Just like a simple one. Let me see. What actions? Oh, last night one of my roommates sleeps below me, which sorry, I dropped things. It's unfortunate how clumsy I am and how often I drop things. Have you noticed how many times I have to duck below? I'm constantly dropping things, which is unfortunate. The other night I had like one of those laundry pod smell good things, which are like shockingly heavy. You know those like canisters of smelly good balls? You know what I'm talking about. Anyway, I had a full thing of that and I forgot that I left it on my bed and I didn't put it back on the shelf. I'd left it on my bed. And so late last night I got into bed and I moved my blanket and kaboom! It made this horror at like midnight. This big thunk right there on the floor. And I was like, lesson learned. I'm going to check my bed before I just throw the covers off because I'm forgetful and I don't want to upset my roommate below me. So there was an action, right? I engaged in an action. I reflected afterward. Didn't do much of this reflection. Reflected afterward. I'm not going to repeat that action again. So there you go. Life is education all the time, little things. So if you view it like that, you can begin to harness how much you're learning and see how much you're growing. I think we get lost in the adult world. We have no sense of how to not judge ourselves, but hold ourselves accountable for growth, right? And I think by seeing life itself as an educational process and being like, okay, yeah, no doubt, no doubt, I've learned a lot since a month ago, man, because now I've been paying attention. And see, when you start to pay attention to how often you learn, you're going to get a confidence boost because you're smart. These are the facts. I think you'll come to them. Now, maybe we have to like, will I learn that lesson? That's a whole nother can of worms, isn't it? But at least now I have the intention. I have the intention of not making that mistake again. Now, I need other dimensions. That can't be the only thing that's not going to work on its own. Now, is it? I need to do more than just intend. I need to make sure my consequences align with my intention. But at least I can be like, at the very least, I'm trying and I'm strengthening my muscles. I'm your critical thinking coach. I'm here to get you stretching your muscles. So, yeah, start looking. The best way to strengthen those muscles is to start seeing life itself as a learning process that you're constantly engaged in. Forgive yourself for failing sometimes, because I know school gave failing a bad rap. It is really school that gave us that bad rap. And then it's like, oh, why does everyone, gosh, feel so bad about themselves? Oh, you're smart because you're always engaged in a human process. And the real thing is, so he says here, the final thing, it has to do with human existence and curiosity. So guess what? You're being a human, as I said, is an educational process. But you gotta engage your curiosity if you're gonna harness that. You can't just be like, okay, life's an educational process, and then not actually engage in the educational process. You have to actively reflect, act, reflect, act. If you're not gonna do that, you're not curious to find out what you could. You're not curious enough. And I'm telling you, life, you're going to get a much better handle on it if you begin to see it this way and take your curiosity and say, what kind of life could I have if I really did learn all the lessons that I need to learn? Because I can think of a lot that I need to learn that I haven't yet. And I'm sure you could too. And how you bump your head. Aren't you tired of bumping your head up against the same wall? I know I am. If you're bumping your head up against the same wall, you're not stupid. You're not being critical enough. So what dimensions do you need to flex? Because something, if we get this critical engine going, we're going to stop banging our head on that wall. I don't want you banging your head on that wall anymore. I want you to figure out a way out of it. And you're only going to do that if you engage your curiosity and engage in the process of education. It is essential that you do that. Don't want to bang your head on the wall? Be a student of life. You've heard that before, but we really mean it. In the critical tradition, we're serious. And we've got some tips. We've got some strategies. So as you're out there today, look for those lessons. Look for those lessons that you can learn from. And be aware. Start seeing the world that way and see if it helps you. Maybe not. Maybe it's not a useful thing for you. But I think you'll find that you're quite capable and you're quite intelligent, and you'll be aware of the lessons you haven't learned yet, which will be helpful. Just a coaching advice. That's all. That's all. So you have a good day out there. Stay essential and have a colorfully critical day. Bye.